All right, I think we're live now. What's up, everybody?
Yay.
I'm here with Anina, and we decided to do this new thing where we would watch an old movie, like, whenever, maybe once a week or, whenever we can, and then stream about it and hear what a youngin who's never seen it will say about
Yep.
it as compared to an old man who's seen it a million times will say about it.
Yep, a complete noob.
Newbie.
Well, I mean, we could just start off because I already, man, I liked it. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah. We'll
it.
start off with it. Okay, you enjoyed it. Yeah, you thought it was a
Yeah,
good movie. I grew up with it.
I
It's a
did.
classic to me. Like I've seen it so many times. Me and my brother used to like recite lines. That scene where Eddie Murphy is the African dude and Dan Aykroyd's
Hmm.
in blackface, a Jamaican guy. Me and my brother used to do that part all the time where he's like umbella 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 hey umbella. We used to do that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Drive my mom nuts.
Well, I mean, that's what you do, right?
Hmm.
I mean, what the fuck else are you supposed to do with that racist stuff? All right.
Yeah, yeah. It's
That was one thing that was kind of shocking. Was I was all like, oh wow, that would never fly
no, that would not
right
fly
now.
these days.
No.
It's kind of funny because it's not really like there is racism in it, but the racism is from the bad people, right? So it makes sense. Like it's not like they're glorifying the racism, right?
Yeah.
They're showing you that.
Well, which is interesting.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, because it's interesting because the in a lot of movies now they're like, no, you can't show racism at all, even if the bad guys are being racist. It's just like bringing up the
Hmm.
idea of racism is somehow racist. I don't.
But then again, Dan Aykroyd in blackface. Like, can you get away with that now?
Hey, I mean, they what was it in Tropic Thunder?
Yeah, yeah. That's the last movie I can think of that somebody did blackface and nobody, there wasn't much controversy on
Yeah.
it.
Well, and I feel like it can be done well, and I feel
Yeah.
like it's ridiculous to say no, you can't dress up as another race. You're an actor. Your job is to pretend to be literally
Yeah.
everything else,
Really,
but
that's
you
the
can't
joke, right? The blackface
do
is the
another race.
joke.
Yeah.
Some
But
people don't get it.
but I liked it. Even though I think a lot of people would find it tasteless today, I really like it. I thought it was interesting regardless. The initial premise though, I was still kind of like, eh, because I feel like near the end of the movie, they kind of tied it up to where they showed that the initial premise, for them being in a different circumstance was wrong because he got himself out of that
Yeah.
circumstance uh, to an extent.
It shows that he's
But
just a smart guy where no matter what circumstance he's in, he could probably work his way out of it, right? And build himself back up.
yeah, so I mean, there was a lot of imagery that I'd really enjoyed though. That was fun to be able because right off the bat they're all like, all right, we're going to show you the absolute desolation, and then we're going to show you the top,
Hmm.
the height of society. And that was, I don't know, I like it when movies are able to portray that in such an effective light, because I feel like some movies will try to be like they'll try to show contrast, and they'll try to show uh, you know something different, but they don't end up showing the truth. It's more
Hmm.
of like Hollywood, whereas I felt like, oh yeah, you're showing all the poor parts, and frankly all the poor parts are all of the black parts
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
I guess
city.
that was kind of the point of the movie, right? It's like showing you that just because people are in unfortunate situations doesn't mean that they're not smart, I guess, or not able to be in a different situation.
Yeah.
It's like
And
if you see Eddie Murphy, like from the beginning, he's playing a con game, right? So he's a smart guy. He's not dumb. He's just trying to con people, but he's just poor. So he's using his con game basically to get money.
mm,
So he knew, like that's why they were able to turn him over so quickly and bring him in and teach him stocks, and he understood it through ghetto terms, right? He was
yeah,
like, "Oh, I get it. You guys are bookies,"
rookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like right off the bat. And it again, it did it again. It indicated that the one guy was more wrong, like the super racist brother in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Then he
He
was
was,
like, "I'll never hire a Negro."
yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, it's a bit
But
crazy. I don't remember hearing that. I watched it a lot on TV, so I'm sure they cut a lot of stuff out. And I don't remember him
oh
saying
yeah,
Negro at all
for
in
sure.
the movie until we watched it now, and I was like, "Oh shit, I forgot about that."
Yeah, and I don't know, the racism that they portrayed him as was breathtaking. It was like, oh my God.
Like, really? Like, holy shit.
That slapped me across the face. But it didn't. I really liked how they took it, and they were all like, they did the subtle things, they showed, they didn't tell.
Yeah.
Whereas, so they were all like, okay, we'll show you what it looks like. We'll show you the differences between the two sides, I guess, the two parts of life in this one city. And
Mm-hmm.
then we'll also show you the side of, the main character who, well, besides Eddie Murphy, I already forgot his
Dan
name.
Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd, yeah. The They showed him, not caring about everybody else and how it was structured so that everybody, looked down on everybody else. But then it didn't matter once there was a spectacle, once there was something to look at. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
cares. Everybody's going to stare anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It just shows you that that the perception people have depending on your status, like how they blind themselves to certain things, and like you take Dan Aykroyd,
Yeah,
and then he was being a douchebag, right? And he thought poor people were disgusting, and then he got put in that situation, you know, and then
yeah.
changed his idea on that. And then the same with the opposite. Eddie Murphy became rich, and then he started hating poor people. Remember, he was like, "What are you doing to my carpet? Get out!"
Well, he started hating. I think he also realized they were like, oh shit, these people aren't friends. They don't care about me.
Yeah, that
They don't
happened
give a
on
shit
both
about.
sides, right? The people that he thought
Yeah,
both people thought were their friends ended up not being their friends when their situations changed. Yeah.
exactly. Because they were like, oh, well, you don't like for one guy, he was like, oh, you don't actually care that I've got all the for Eddie Murphy. He's like, you don't actually care that I have all this property. You don't care that I have success. You just want the success for you. You just want to take it.
Yeah.
You want to bask in my limelight. And the other guy was like, well, when I need help, when shit actually hits the fan, for Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, with that Aykroyd, they were like, "I can't believe you'd come here and embarrass us like
Yeah,
this,"
they didn't
like
they
because
didn't
of what he's
care.
wearing.
Well, and it was a fucking kangaroo court the whole time. That fucking where the scene where they're all like, "Oh, put your hand up and then reach into the
Yeah,
specific pocket." I was like, "Oh God, that's so silly." But
but
I
I
feel
think
like
it's
it
the
was,
point is to be silly because they're all
yeah,
nobody will say shit because they're all like, that's their boss, that's the big guy, and they're like, yeah, this seems a little weird, but fuck it, it's not happening to me. I'm rich, I don't care.
exactly. So, and even though it didn't make sense, everybody went along with the charade. Same with how
Yeah,
everybody, said good morning to him initially, and he wouldn't even stare at them, and then everybody, it was very calculated and planned out, and it took him forever. It took Dan Aykroyd forever to realize what was going on, to the extent that I was like, oh my God,
it was.
I mean,
No, no, go ahead, finish your thought.
I was just saying it was like, my God, man, it's not just you've never worked a day in your life. You've never had anything challenging,
Yeah,
like anything resembling challenging
yeah.
in
Or
your
she was like
life for
touching
you
his
to,
hands, and then she was like, "They're so soft." Like you've
yeah,
never worked a hard
you have a
work in your life.
manicure.
Yeah, and a manicure. But it's like all those people like involved with that movie at that time, it was a perfect combination because they were all really on the top of the game at that moment. John Landis made that movie. He had hit after hit before that with comedy and horror. He did American Werewolf in London. He did Animal House. He did a bunch of movies before that that were huge hits. Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy are both from Saturday Night Live. Dan Aykroyd made Ghostbusters, and
Yeah.
yeah, Eddie Murphy was just blowing up right at that moment with Beverly Hills Cop, and so everybody was just like they were on a roll. That was like the perfect movie time for that movie to come out.
Well, and you could tell because they were super into it. Eddie Murphy was
Yeah, you could tell
super.
he had so much fun making that movie. There's so many
Yeah,
scenes that you could just tell they had a lot of fun making it.
him being the guy him being a fucking con man rolling around on the streets. How you just tell he was relishing the scene. It was
Hmm.
awesome.
That's
And
something I
same with
find
them.
missing with movies nowadays. Like that, you see a
Yeah,
lot of movies like that in the '70s and '80s where you could just tell they had so much fun making that movie, and you don't see that so much anymore.
no, because a lot of movies now are less art and more propaganda.
Hmm.
And it's frustrating to me because I'm sitting here like, I don't want you to pander to me. I'll watch a white dude. I don't care if he's a white dude. I care if the character is compelling,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
this story is interesting. And like same with Dan Aykroyd. When he was acting crazy, it was like, you could tell even though he's acting depressed and sad and ruined, he was enjoying himself.
Hmm.
Like I don't know, it shone through, and it was beautiful.
But this is a good
Even so,
example of how you can talk about race in a movie and not make it seem too forced. You know, it seemed
yeah,
natural in the movie. It didn't seem like they were trying to shove the message down your throat. You know, it's
yeah,
like the
well,
show
because
now don't tell thing that you were saying earlier. Yeah.
yeah, because it's and I mean every the characters just accepted it as as a given that the racism was there. Like
Hmm.
it wasn't like, oh my god,
And it
a
wasn't in
racist.
every scene. They just, it was just mentioned here and there. But most of the time,
Hmm.
race isn't even mentioned in the movie. You know.
Yeah, I mean, other than the two racist brothers, but
Yeah. Besides them, yeah, it's never even mentioned. And they only really mention it once or twice. They barely ever said it either.
yeah,
I
but
feel
it
like if
was
they remade that movie now, it would be all about race, like constantly. It would be
oh
constantly mentioned, and it'd all be
dude,
about that.
police brutality
Yeah, it
messages
wouldn't
just
be
strewed
because
throughout.
even if you look in the throughout the movie, when you see the people like working there are some black people working there. And so that means that some people actually worked their way up that were black. So it's not the message that Eddie Murphy was poor because he was black. He just happened to be poor.
Yeah, I more meant that was that they showed the reality of it
Hmm.
rather than whereas I've seen some Hollywood movies where they'll try to show, oh, look at these super rich people and then look at these super poor people, but they won't, like, they'll intentionally film people of the same race to
Hmm.
not and I don't really understand why, but I'm trying to think of a specific example. I can't remember. The movies are forgettable. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
that's what it is. There's this like when I was growing up, I often then conflicted because I don't know if it's nostalgia, but to me, I feel like 70s and 80s and some 90s they made movies that are kind of timeless that you can watch it years later and they're still super good, where I feel like movies nowadays are not going to have that. Like in a couple years you're going to forget it. Like I already forgot most of the movies from 2000 to 2010.
I mean, fuck. I remember some cartoons better than I remember. Like I remember
Hmm.
Avatar: The Last Airbender
Hmm.
more than I remember almost any movie that I saw during that time because it was a story. It wasn't just churned out art.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't churned out crap from Hollywood. And I as it kind of one thing I kind of like the fact that celebrities are freaking out and breaking down right now because it
Yeah.
just shows, wow, you're talentless. Just wow.
But it also shows the time limit of Hollywood. Like you got John Landis made that movie, you got Dan Aykroyd, you got Eddie Murphy, and all three of those people, Jamie Lee Curtis too, are barely doing anything anymore, and they're not like hot
Yeah.
commodities or anything. But John Landis practically stopped making movies after the '90s. So. But there was
Which
a
is
big problem with that, where he made Twilight Zone the movie, and he got an actor Vic Morrow and two Vietnamese kids, like toddlers, were killed on the set when a helicopter landed on them. So that was a big problem where he didn't want to make movies
oh
anymore
boy.
after that. Yeah, that was like in like
Yeah.
'86. That was like 3 years after Trading Places. So he didn't make too many
God.
movies after that. But Steven Spielberg was also involved, and he kept making movies. But they were in court for like 15 years over that.
Oh, well, yeah, if you accidentally squash some kids with your helicopter, what
Yeah,
the
yeah,
fuck,
helicopter
man?
landed an actor Vic Morrow, and they weren't
Okay.
the kids weren't even supposed to be there because there's like laws against children working after hours, and they were working after hours. So in the end, they weren't those kids weren't even supposed to be there. That's
Yeah, that's
that's why
fucked
they got
up.
in big trouble. Yeah, and well, but that did lead to a lot of uh, new regulations and enforcement of rules and stuff. So I mean, it did do something for Hollywood where it became a lot safer because of that. Because before then
Um,
there was all these rules, but people barely paid attention and didn't care. They were like, we could bend the
yeah.
rules. Nobody's gonna say anything. But now they do say something.
Which is good. I just feel like it's gonna as it keeps going on, I think you're right that there is a time limit to not just like, yes, there's a period of time back in the 80s where when they made movies they were much more timeless because they cared much more about the
Hmm.
actual characters and the story than they cared about, you know, spreading a message or something like that,
Yeah.
or representing this specific group
Hmm.
for whatever reason. So I feel like it's more timeless, but at the same time, I feel like Hollywood has a time limit with how big and bloated can something get before it just collapses?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I was also saying with them too, like there was like a perfect storm for that movie. That was like the decade for all of those people involved, you know. So it was like,
Yeah,
so when studios were giving them money to make movies, they had more faith in them to do whatever they wanted to do, you know, as opposed to
yeah,
stepping in every 2 seconds because they're like, all right, you already
and
made 5 hits in a row, like here, make one.
yeah, exactly. And it shows. And I mean, it shows not just in the fact that they were enjoying themselves thoroughly, but it shows in what they were able to represent,
Mm-hmm.
in how stark of a divide they were able to portray
Yeah,
between, frankly, normal people and insane
yeah, and
psychopaths.
insane psychopaths with money
Yeah.
making a bet
Which,
to ruin people's lives over $1 and shit.
yeah,
It's nuts.
it was some Wolf of Wall Street shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
Yeah,
Like, uh, that was creepy.
but you,
And
mhm.
I mean, it's still Hollywood, so it's still like, all right, some of it's campy, some of it's
Mm-hmm.
corny, like the whole kangaroo court thing, because I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it was super realistic. But regardless, I can forgive all of that, even though that's like, I feel like that's the only actual criticism I have of the movie is that the fact that the court made absolutely no
No,
sense.
that didn't make much
It was
sense.
ridiculous. But it didn't matter because the
Mm-hmm.
premise itself was good
Well,
and
it's kind of
interesting.
a comedic point of how pretentious these people are. Like they're rich and they're so
Yeah,
pretentious that they set up this bullshit ass court for that. You know, and it's like, oh god, these guys are really douchebags, straight up.
yeah. And then the police, well, and then the police actually get involved, and they're not like, oh, you stole $150. Why did you steal 150? You have tens of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars in your account. Why did you steal 150?
Well, I'm assuming that one guy bribed that cop to put that PCP in his pocket because that wasn't
Yeah.
there, right? And before then there was that scene they show him talking to the whispering in the cop's ear real quick, and then it goes to the next scene where he finds the PCP in his pocket. So I'm guessing that he paid the cop off or something.
Which it's still
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but
getting thrown in jail to that extent. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's my, inexperience speaking,
an
that in my
experience in
opinion.
80s corruption. The 80s had a
Yeah,
lot of
I just
corruption,
think,
trust me.
yeah, yeah, and thinking that would never fly. But that's me speaking from my era,
Mm-hmm.
from what I'm used to, in the fact that there's, social media and everything can be spread
Yeah, and
a
things come
million
out
ways.
really easy nowadays.
Yeah,
But it's just like in
but
1983 you got away with murder way easier. They didn't have DNA testing yet.
said, I mean, and maybe that's a point that they were trying to make that just didn't hit for me
Hmm.
because it's not my generation, like
Yeah,
nowhere
that's a good
close.
question. What do you feel like it's out of time, or did you feel like you can enjoy it regardless, or put yourself in that time and enjoy it?
I could enjoy it. I enjoyed it regardless.
Mm.
I don't feel like it was. I feel like so. Here's the thing: you can have a story. You can have like a romance or something. You can have a basic setup for a story, and you can put it in any time period that you want to, and it can still be an enjoyable
Mm-hmm.
story, even for people who haven't lived through that, who haven't experienced it, if you're able to successfully, recreate the world. And I feel like that they were able to. I feel like that they were really able to recreate, like to catch the feel, like when they were doing those shots of the street in the beginning, and all the stores and exactly what everything looked like during that time period. And not just that, like the way that people dress. And part of it was because that, it was closer to that time period. But there's enough recognizable things that I've seen from other movies or other works of art that I've been able, you can tie back and you're like, okay, it's this time period. Like it's distinctively this time period. Like the hair, the big curly hair,
The
the
outfits.
wigs,
Like the
yeah, the
outfits Jamie
outfit.
Lee Curtis was wearing. It was like super
Oh
80s. They
yeah,
were hot, but it
oh
was
yeah.
super 80s. Yeah. She had an
And like I
incredible body
can
back then. It's crazy. I was like, oh
Yeah,
shit.
and I can recognize, like I can look at, like for me, it's still transporting me because I remember looking at photos of my mom
Mm-hmm.
with her having the big curly hair and everything like that.
Oh yeah,
That's
my mom did too.
yeah,
My mom would get perms
the
and
big
come
perm,
home
yeah.
smelling like burnt hair, and I'd be like, "Oh, you're making the house stink."
Yeah. My mom had mostly like naturally curly
Mm-hmm.
hair, but she still got it permed to get it to
Yeah,
do the whole crazy thing.
yeah. Perms were nuts. They were basically burning their hair to curl it and shit.
Oh yeah,
It
no,
would
it's
smell
completely destroying
horrible.
your. But yeah, I feel like it doesn't. The reason that it's timeless is because they did such an effective job putting it in the time
Right. Yeah,
and
and they care about the
building up the
product. You can
character.
tell they care about it. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't like a movie they just put out just to put out and cash in on. You could tell they cared about the story. They cared about the way they acted in it and how they portrayed things.
yeah, exactly. So it didn't, and there some 80s nut can probably correct me going, that's not what it is, you weren't alive during the 80s, so you
Yeah.
don't know. That's not what it looked like. Like people had different hair. Like that clothing isn't right. Maybe, but it didn't matter because you could tell that the actors were passionate
Mm-hmm.
about the characters that they were playing. So I didn't. Yeah, I love that. It was great.
Even the butler was cool.
Yeah.
Like, and he really, that
Well,
dude really acted well. You could really see the sadness in his face at the beginning when this whole plot
yeah.
started. You could really see that he wasn't into it and he was sad about kicking this guy out, tricking the black
He's
dude.
genuinely heartbroken
Yeah.
over fucking over this guy that he'd been taking care of, even though he wasn't exactly like nice to him. I mean, he was a complete dick, but he still had a greater than thou
Mm-hmm.
attitude.
But you could kind of tell Dan Aykroyd, he was kind of snooty beforehand, but he wasn't an asshole,
Oh,
like even when he was
yeah.
asking, I think he was asked, oh, they were saying like, oh, you're paying them too much. Well, why are we paying these employees this much? He's like, that's minimum wage. Like, you can't get around that.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get around the minimum wage. Jesus.
Yeah, they wanted to pay the workers even less than minimum wage.
I mean, fuck. That's topical. If nothing else is, that's. I mean, that's what we've been
Yeah,
doing with China.
that's another thing where that message is kind of still prevalent today, right? We still have huge disparities of rich people and poor people. Like you really could remake that
Exactly.
movie now, and the message would still be the same.
Oh yeah, it might even hit harder,
Yeah, true.
frankly,
Yeah, there
because
was even
they're
more
right.
disparity
Them,
now.
yeah, and them try, and they could bring up that look, they could be all like, oh well, we're outsourcing all of our labor to China because that's cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and that would fucking, I feel like that would hit real hard and piss a lot of people off. But it would never happen because Hollywood loves China.
Yeah, true. And China's where we make a lot of our money now with films. That's why they stick an Asian person in like every movie now.
Yeah, and not only that, they like rewrite scripts and stuff like that to be
Mm-hmm.
released to the Chinese audience so that it's more praising
Yeah,
the great leader and all that. Oh, it's
I
creepy.
know
Anyway,
Marvel's been getting criticism over that because
the
they'll
South
add.
Park episode
Yeah.
where they all the Marvel characters file onto the plane with Randy to fly to China. It was great.
It's
Anyway,
true though. They do that. They'll film like just like a 5 minute scene just to throw in the movie that has like an Asian person just to be like, yeah, look, China, we're thinking of you.
yeah, there's this. Not to get even more off topic, but there's this. I can't remember his name, but There's like a one YouTuber that I remember. I know there's more than one, but there was this one YouTuber that I remember where he initially wasn't like he wouldn't pander to China. He was trying to make his own thing, but a lot of Chinese people started watching him. And then once the Chinese government noticed that a lot of Chinese people were watching this American white dude, they started offering him tons of money to say a bunch of specific things.
Yeah,
And he did. He straight up did. He
those.
started singing like Chinese national anthem songs and all this.
Yeah, those are called white monkeys. That's what they call them in
Yeah,
Chinese. Whatever the word is in Chinese, but it translates to white monkeys, which is basically when you take white people to do things for you and play the fool for you in China.
anyway, that's totally off topic.
Yeah,
Not about
but
the
it's cool.
movie. Um, but I don't know. I felt like Dan Aykroyd did a really good job
Mm-hmm.
of like when once uh, after like it took him a long time to realize what was going on.
Yeah,
But once he did realize what was going on, I felt like he did a really good job portraying just how desperate
yeah, and
he
how
was.
downtrodden he got. Yeah, Oh, he was like drunk in
Yeah.
a Santa suit, and Eddie Murphy's like, "Hey, Win, throw up," and he's like, he just makes that drunken, I don't give a shit about myself anymore fucking noise. It's
Yeah,
perfect. It fits so well to that scene.
it did. Well, and simultaneously, I mean, Eddie Murphy's character, he learned really quick. Like he almost instantly took him one night and he was all like, "Okay, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
kick all these assholes out. I'm done with it."
Yeah,
And I'm going and like I said
yeah, he
before when we
adapted
were
fast.
watching it, yeah, and he developed a sense of worth like very quickly and going, "Oh, shit, this is real and these are actual expensive things that are now under my care." And I feel like that made a good point about how yes, circumstances do change people or can change people to an extent.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought it was nice
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, it seemed real, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Well, like I was saying before, the way I see it was that Eddie Murphy's character was smart in the first place. He was just in a shitty situation,
Yeah.
but he still did the best he could out of that situation, right? So when they put him in a better situation, he did the best he could out of that, you know. So it's like whatever situation he's
Yeah,
in, he's gonna make the best out of it, you know. But he didn't give up his
exactly.
morals the second he found out these guys were playing a trick, and even from before, he was looking at this guy like he felt bad for him, you know. Dan Aykroyd, every time I saw him, Dan Aykroyd wanted to kill him the whole time, and he's looking at him like he feels bad for him, you know. Like, wait, what's going on? Like, who
Yeah,
is that guy?
and uh, it's because I feel like the movie made a really subtle but good point about how hardship builds character
Yeah.
and how hardship actually turns a person into a good person, not just, or it can rather.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can destroy you,
Yeah.
but at the same time, with Dan Aykroyd's character, it was that destruction was necessary
Yeah, he
for
had
him
to
to
hit his
actually
lowest
develop.
point.
Because if he didn't, I mean, he would have married, you know, the dumb bimbo that didn't actually give a fuck about him.
Yeah.
He would have you know, living in or having this job where eventually he probably wouldn't be. He'd end up like those two old fucks
Yeah, maybe. If they still kept him around, they might have fucked him up and then fucked him over in another way later on,
for
you know?
another dollar bet.
I mean, they don't give a fuck.
For
Like I was saying
$1.
before, the girl he was gonna marry was their granddaughter. They didn't even they didn't even think
Yeah,
about that once to be like, yeah, let's ruin this guy's life. Oh, what about our granddaughter? She's gonna marry him. And they were like, ah, who cares?
yeah.
Let's just do it anyway for $1.
There was no love. There was no
Yeah, and how
actual
quick she gave up
understanding.
on him the second she thought he was selling drugs. She was just like, I'm done
Yeah,
with him.
there was no faith. That was another
Mm-mm.
thing. There was no faith, no credibility. He didn't have a shred of credibility among any of the people that he thought were his friends.
Yeah,
Nobody cared. Not a single person was willing to say, "I believe you," you know, or
yeah.
"I'll stick up for you."
It
It
exposed his life
was
for being fake. What he thought he had, he didn't have really. You know, all he really had was the money, but he didn't have the love he thought he had, the friends he thought he had. You know, he didn't have any of that. It was all fake.
well, and yeah, and I feel like it made a really important point about that, about how there's it's easy, especially if something's been just handed to you in your life, if that's the normal that you have,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to take it for granted and you're going to assume that this is love, you're going to assume that this is friendship, that
Right.
these people actually care and not question it in the least. And
Mm-hmm.
I, I I don't know, I liked that because it points out that it like even though you know this the actual situation is a little bit crazy where there's two kooky old guys, you know, basically playing god and fucking around with other people's lives, while that can happen, it's more likely that you're just going to lose everything. Like near the end of the movie, Dan Aykroyd is like, everything can fall in a minute. Like you could be uber wealthy in 1 minute and the next you're, you know, desolate and broken, when he was talking about
Mm-hmm.
how it can crash on you. So I feel like that was another point of that the movie was trying to make, that it was, you know, things can just be ripped away. You don't have a say in it. You have a say in how you react, but it can happen without you even realizing that it's happened. Because
Yeah.
again, Dan Aykroyd didn't realize that he was like, it's just a mistake. You know, everything's fine. I'll fix it. I'll go to the bank. I'll get my money back. I'm framed.
Yeah. And he did hit a super low. He tried to commit suicide, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
it just shows. It's like you get into a situation. It shows you like it can either make or break you, and it's just how you handle it, if, whether it will or not. I mean, he was already he was invading the business with a gun. You know, he got drunk. He tried to kill himself with pills.
yeah, and that initially it broke him
Mm-hmm.
because his entire reality was
Yeah, shattered.
completely shattered. But after that reality was shattered, and he had some help, like a little bit of help from the people around him, getting him to a
Yeah, the
doctor and
new
stuff
friends
like
that he
that.
met that were his actual friends. He didn't realize people who
Yeah,
actually cared for him and helped him. You know, and they weren't just with him for
and
some
he
sort of
was
status or something.
exactly. They had he found something real,
Mm-hmm.
and through the finding of that of what was real, he he grew like significantly as a character, and
Yeah,
I
and
feel
his
like they did a
life
really
ended
good
up
job
even
showing
better.
that.
Now rich, still now rich again, but surrounded by real friends, not fake friends,
Hmm.
that he met when he wasn't rich. I
I
think.
loved the
Oh no, go ahead, go ahead.
go. No, you go for it.
I
I've been
think
talking too
I think if
much.
they made it now, I think they would change who they were beforehand. Not Dan Aykroyd so much, but I think they wouldn't have made Eddie Murphy be like a con man, like criminal. You know what I'm saying? Like they would show him as being like, oh yeah, he's the good guy from the ghetto, and this is the bad guy from the that's rich. As opposed to them
Yeah,
both being living a life that was pretty much a lie to both of them. Because all Eddie Murphy was doing was pretending he was disabled and conning people out of money.
yeah. No, and I mean, I feel like it's a good point because they were. I don't know. I feel like it would take a little bit away from the movie if it were remade and that was and they changed Eddie Murphy's
Mm-hmm.
character. Because if with that, with him, you know, doing shitty things, you know, they because they were pointing out that not all rich people are um horrible. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like with Dan Aykroyd's character, but they
Right.
were also pointing out not all poor people are fantastic.
Right. But also, you can get blinded by your situation where you act kind of horrible to people sometimes without noticing, even though you're not a bad person.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that applies to both of them
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
that
don't
goes to
think
both.
Eddie Murphy was trying to, be an absolute creepy weirdo when he
Nah,
was
he was
harassing
he
that
was
chick
just
in the
getting by.
park. Yeah,
Oh yeah, he
and
was kind of harassing that chick in the
he
park. He
was
grabbed her
harassing
coat
her.
and wouldn't let her leave. That is
It's just
true.
like, oh fuck that.
Oh man.
So,
And then Dan Aykroyd, where everybody was saying good morning to him, he just doesn't even look at them, and he just walks right past them and says good morning, good morning. He doesn't even have enough respect for them to look at them. But I would assume that's something he doesn't even notice he's doing. And if he did, he might be like, oh
yeah.
yeah, maybe I should be nicer.
Well, and I feel like it's something that he probably justified to himself.
Yeah,
It's something like, oh, like, if whether or not, I mean, maybe he didn't notice it at all, but even if he did, like, even there was a tiny bit of that voice in his head going, hey, you're just, there's a lot of people who are sucking up to you. I don't know. I feel like even if you don't fully recognize that, it can definitely go to your head.
yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize about or how easy somebody can get wrapped up in a situation, right? Like if you get taken out of your normal environment, put in another one, it gets really easy for you to just go with the flow and become part of that situation and not think about anything else.
Yeah.
Like easily Eddie
And
Murphy, if he didn't hear really, if Eddie Murphy didn't hear the whole plot of what was happening, he would have just played the whole scene out and they would have gotten rid of him at some point, and nothing would have happened.
yeah, and he would have been put right back at the
and
beginning.
and look how easily he got wrapped up in being rich. Like it happened so quick.
And he was the thing is, and I feel like they made another point that look, it doesn't like if they were trying to point out that look, if Eddie Murphy, the smart guy, had while even he could have done something else, he could have done more
Yeah,
to try to get himself out of that situation, and
right.
he wasn't making those decisions
No,
because he was blinded to it.
yeah, he was all wrapped up in his situation, so he was just living with what he knew. But he probably, yeah, but he was smart. Look how quick he learned stocks, and he was making the right decisions for these guys and
Dude,
making the money. So he could have done that right
yeah,
away. Of his whole life, he could have been in stocks. He didn't even know.
exactly.
Well, to him, that's
I'm
what I was saying. It was the ghetto thing for him, because for him, it's like, oh, you guys are bookies, so this is like gambling. I get it. You know, like you just have to put it in
yeah,
his terms.
I loved that line. That she said, she was like, "It's this is not Shakespeare, Louis." I was like, yes.
Yeah, that
Like
is a good
she's
line.
yes,
Like
my name's
Ophelia,
Ophelia,
like Shakespeare. Yeah.
Shakespeare.
And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, this is real life. We have to work and make money. Like, this isn't a fantasy world.
And I liked how they also pointed out how it was a fantasy world. Like he walks into the club all disheveled, wearing those clothes, like the country club where all of his friends were sitting, and they're
Just
singing this
fucking
corny
singing that
song in a
corny song.
quartet.
Oh god, it was so bad.
It was it was oh god, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. But that's so
But
cheesy. Where that was like, look at this fucking guy with his
yeah,
collar up and his little tiny shorts and shit. Like, what the fuck?
well, and they
Uh,
did a good. I feel like they did a good job of showing the fakeness of it
yeah,
all. Because who does that? Who sits there singing the quartet? What the?
yeah. Nobody does that shit. That's ridiculous.
It
That's that
was yeah.
pretentious country club shit. But I really would have liked to have seen him. They didn't show this in the movie, but I would have liked to have seen Dan Aykroyd like do something to get back at his ex fiance. They never say what happens to her, but that would have been a good like just desserts kind of thing. Like, yeah, you deserve this.
Yeah, she was kind of a throwaway
Yeah.
character.
But maybe
Like
now that
just
her
there to.
grandparents are poor, maybe she'll be poor too and kicked out of the country club. I don't know. She doesn't do anything for money. She's just a rich kid, right?
Yeah, she's just a pretty face. There's nothing else for that she brings to the table. I mean, and which is kind of sad because I feel like she could have been a little bit more fleshed out. And I think you're right. It would have been a little bit more interesting
Yeah.
had she suffered some consequences as well. Because I mean, yeah, she might become poor now, and I don't know.
Go
Maybe
work
they'll
at
do something
McDonald's.
like that in the next movie.
Nah, there's no more movies for that. Well, they're making a sequel to Coming to America, which Coming to America
Oh,
does have an
I
Easter egg
misunderstood.
that kind of connects this movie to it, but it's not a huge thing. Like it's not like that movie's a sequel. There's just a little Easter egg to kind of
Oh,
show
okay.
they're. I
I
guess that
misunderstood.
kind of shows they're in the same universe, but it doesn't really matter. But maybe we'll watch that next. That's a good one too.
Yeah, maybe.
It's another Eddie Murphy classic made by John Landis as well.
But yeah, it was. It was. I also thought it was funny how Dan Aykroyd when he like waves the gun over the crowd and he's all like, "Yeah." I thought that was great.
Yeah, he
I
felt
thought that
that
was
power. It's like he was rich
yeah,
before and he had so much power, people would bow to him. Basically, that's kind of a representation of like, now I'm poor, nobody even looks at me anymore. I'm invisible, but with this gun, when I wave it around,
yeah.
everybody bows to me again.
I just thought that was
That's
really
good too.
great
His
comedic scene.
his I guess his acting in that moment was really good. Like, you can really see like the proudness in his face when he waves it, and you see everybody
Yeah,
duck, and he had like this very proud look in his face. Like, yeah, that's right.
the crazy Santa brings Wall Street to its knees.
Yeah.
It was good. Ah, that was so much fun. But just and I feel like I don't feel like it could be done.
No,
I don't
no,
feel like
it
it
would
could be
not be good
redone.
if they'd remade that movie.
Maybe if some edgy creators made it or something like
Yeah,
that. But
it'd have to be the right people, right? But that's what I was saying about that movie itself too, is that was all the right people they got for that, right? They were all at top of their game at the time. So it's like, to find that again to make a remake, it's not going to work the same, because you'd have to find people that are on the top of their game again.
yeah. Well, and it's kind of sad because I would love something like that to be created today, something
A modern
fresh
take,
and
yeah.
new. Yeah, but it's not gonna happen.
You brought up that movie. What was it? Dinner for Schmucks? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That
that's what
movie
one
itself
made
is a
me.
remake. I don't know if you know that, but that's like a '60s movie.
Oh,
Yeah, that's like a movie from the
yeah,
'60s with Jerry Lewis. So that itself was a remake, and I'll tell you, that movie's not bad. I enjoyed the remake. I thought it was pretty funny.
oh, I
Yeah,
liked
I
it.
liked
I
it.
enjoyed the remake quite a bit.
So
I now that I know it's a remake, but I thought it was. I mean, it's kind of the same thing where they
mhm.
where they take the where they take somebody who's been in that world, who's entrenched in in that, I guess, ideology. I don't know, the rich
Yeah, snooty,
mentality.
snooty rich people.
This, yeah. So they take somebody who's in there, and then they try to be all like, okay, well, we're gonna bring in elements of the poorest of the poor or the stupidest of the stupid. We think we're of ourselves as intellectually elite, and then we're gonna take somebody who we consider to be retarded. It, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's kind of the same. Like
it is.
it's a similar
I saw
concept.
that movie in the theater too. I enjoyed it very much. Always like the
Uh,
where Steve Carell fucks up the Beatles line. He said, they say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not. He's like, you mean I'm not the only one? He was like, what?
one.
He's like, I don't think that's the line. So that was
That
a good movie though.
song.
But it is a
That
similar
song is.
premise, but instead of them trading places, it's just a rich person who tries to and they have a party, right, where they invite and they try to get
Mhm.
the most cringiest people to invite, I guess, would be in modern internet terms to say.
Yeah, or the which, and it pointed out that they were all schmucks.
Yeah, yeah, fucking schmuck.
But I feel like it's the same thing where they eventually pointed out that they were all, it didn't matter if you were rich or poor, you were all people who could be completely fucked over by the system,
Yeah.
including the two old assholes who'd been there for forever. They're like, we own this firm, we made this firm. Yeah, too sucks to suck.
But it's also a thing that like especially with like certain comedians or comedic actors, like they're only good in their time period for some. And it's like, who would you get
Mhm.
nowadays to play someone like Eddie Murphy or Dan Aykroyd? Like, there's nobody like them nowadays either. And I think people like that are just
No.
products of that time. Like, you can't have that anymore.
Well, and I feel like eventually we might get some new talent
Mm.
who's able to do that. But I feel like that's probably going to have to happen after all of this crazy shit blows over
Yeah,
right
maybe.
now.
Well,
Just
Hollywood
because,
is in a. Hollywood needs to drop down a few pegs. Like, I don't think they get the concept that
dude,
they're overdoing everything and it's oversaturating stuff and everything's too overproduced and, there's nothing fresh, there's no risks. And it's like in those
that
times, 70s, 80s was like the biggest time for movies because it was constant risks and constant taking a chance on things. Like, everything was pretty fresh. And
was art.
yeah,
It's art. It's
and
not
people were hungry,
propaganda.
man. This is why when I talk about horror, I talk about horror in the 80s being something special, and exactly why is because I say directors in those days that were making horror movies is usually their first movies, and they're hungry, they want to get into Hollywood, so they have this company that says, here's a couple of $100,000, like make something, and they get to just make whatever they want because the company's not going to lose out too much money. They're just putting in a bit. They're usually low budget, right? So, you're getting these really hungry, straight out of college directors who really want to blow up, so they're giving you the best they can put out, with
Yeah,
with little. So they're doing a lot with the little they have, and it gets really creative.
yeah, and that's where creativity
Mm-hmm.
tends to bloom. And now we don't have that. We have the same directors making the
Mm-hmm.
same remakes over and over and over
And I
again.
think horror and comedy kind of have that similarity in in Hollywood, where it's like they're both kind of like that. Like back in the day in the 80s, you had a lot of low budget comedies too, and it was just people just trying to get out there. But nowadays, I feel like they're all formulaic. Like, I can't even think of the last good comedy I've seen, like comedy movie that I've seen.
Dude, we need not a recent one. I mean,
Mm-mm.
the last thing that I was watching was a bit of Fry and Laurie, but that's old.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
like
There's nothing really
ancient.
currently. Well, people are saying Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle. Those are comedians. I'm talking about comedy movies. We're talking film.
Yeah,
Like, they're not making movies. Dave Chappelle made Half Baked in the 90s. I love that movie. Hilarious fucking movie. But he hasn't made any more movies after that. But I feel that the thing is that it's because of the fear of taking risks that everything has become very formulaic. Like, all comedies now follow the same formulas. All horror movies are just constant, the formula of constant jump scares, and you gotta have that last one right at the end, you know? And it's like every movie just ends up becoming the same. That's why they're not memorable.
well, and I feel like part of it is also because people are like movies specifically are kind of becoming somewhat of a dead medium. Not quite, but like it's starting to go that
Oh
way
yeah, TV
where
has taken
people
over too.
yeah, where people want to binge watch
Mm-hmm.
stuff where and they want to sit there and go, okay, I want to, stay up for 3 weeks
Yeah, let me tell you,
to watch
growing up,
all of it.
TV was always way worse than movies. Like, you never had a TV show that looked better than a movie, that was written better than a movie, that had better actors than a movie. It was movies were always
Yeah.
better because all the budget always went to movies. TV always had little budget, and it's starting. You're starting to see a big switch. Like maybe starting 10 years ago, we started getting TV shows that were just as good as movies, with the same special effects, same great actors, same great
The same
writing.
level.
Yeah, and now we're starting to see it surpass. Like, we're starting to see TV look even better than Hollywood movies sometimes.
Yeah, and it's nice.
It is
Frank,
nice.
and I
But I
feel
would
like,
like to see film continue as well. I like short form as well.
well, and that's the thing is I feel like people are craving people crave more right now. Like they want quantity over quality specifically, and so because people are craving that, directors tend to meet that demand, and so they give them quantity instead of quality.
Mm.
So something like Game of Thrones, to an extent. I mean, the now looking back, like during it, I was all like, "Oh my gosh, it's so great! It's incredible! I'm blown away by everything." And now that I look back on it, I'm like, they kind of dragged that out
Hmm.
just a bit. It
That's the
in
problem
some
with TV,
places.
is not knowing when to stop. A lot of times, some shows don't know when to stop. I look at Walking Dead.
Yeah, and
Walking
then
Dead's still going. And Game of Thrones did that too, where people didn't like the last season. It's like they didn't know when to stop, I guess.
yeah, and I feel like that the attention, like it's weird, like people's attention spans, everybody will be like everybody's attention spans are shortening, when in reality I don't think that's true. Everybody's just craving more and more content because it's available to
Yeah,
them more often, but they then, they don't, because they crave the amount of content, they don't crave the
yeah.
quality, and so they don't seek,
That was like a thing
since
with
there's not.
Seinfeld. That's the only show I can ever think of where they stopped it while they were at the top of their game. Like, they were being offered millions of dollars to continue the show, and they were like, "No, we did 9 seasons. We're good. Like, we're gonna stop. We're quitting while we're on top. Like, we're not gonna bother to continue this show." And it was like the only reason the show didn't continue was because the actors didn't want to. They said, "No, that's enough." And that was like the only
Yeah,
time I can think of that a television show stopped because they were good. Like, yeah, we're good. We'll just end it here.
which, which is sad, unless it's like an independent thing, like an indie show. Most of the time, that's not going to happen.
Hmm.
They're going to keep going. It's a cash cow, and they're going to
Yeah,
milk
that's
it
what it
till it's
is. That
dead.
people care more about. Well, we've told the whole story, but we could still make more money off of these characters. So let's keep it going. That's my issue with Star Wars. For the longest time, what I want from Star Wars is to see a different era, different characters, different stories. But they constantly make films with the same characters. And they have to connect to the same
They straight up
characters, and they have to be in the
CGI'd the
same
dead
time.
ones.
Yeah, they even CGI in the dead ones. And it's like, yeah, that it's we're watching a universe that's a whole galaxy, with thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history.
And you
Like,
can only focus on these,
yeah,
like,
and we're only focusing in this one little time period with these few characters. And it's like, why? And that's where you
yeah.
kill off these characters. Like, they made that Han Solo movie, that shit bombed. And now you're making these characters not as memorable as they used to be. Like, just leave them where they are.
Yeah, because they're retconning everything. They're
Hmm.
all like, let's change it all up, and I knew it was gonna fucking happen.
I see Devin
As
brought
soon
up
as I saw
Spy.
Rogue One, I was like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm fucking out.
Yeah, even
I
that
haven't
had new characters, but it still took place in the same time period and still shoved them into the
Yes,
story that already was told. Like, why do that?
but okay,
That could have
I
been
don't
a cool
even.
movie if it was just take those characters and write a whole other story at somewhere else in the galaxy, having nothing to do with that, and it would have been great.
Yeah, but I don't think. Here's the thing. I don't think they would have even, like, they didn't even put characters in there. I wouldn't define them as characters. Sorry, I fucking hate that
Yeah, I
movie.
could kind of see that.
I wouldn't define them as characters because, frankly, they were simply eyes for us to watch,
Hmm.
the other side of the same movie we've already seen.
Yeah, true. To see the
Like,
behind the
and
scenes,
this
basically.
stupid, yeah, this stupid dude running around going, I am the force is with me. I am the force is with his. Ah, that made me want to die. That was
I
so
didn't
bad.
mind that movie, but I could have gone without it. I wasn't asking for that film. You know what I'm saying? Basically, they're just giving me stuff that I'm
Well,
not
and
asking
maybe,
for, and I'm just like, eh,
maybe that's my nostalgia because
yeah.
I grew up with that shit. Because
Hmm.
I was since I was raised Mormon, we weren't allowed to have TV, we weren't allowed to have movies, we weren't allowed to have video games. We were allowed to have my dad's specific set of box set DVDs that he had bought because he
Star
was a
Wars.
nerd. So
Yeah, I
Star
love Star
Wars,
Wars all my
Lord of
life.
the Rings. Uh,
You
so
haven't
that's what I
seen.
grew up on.
See, Devin's bringing up the Mandalorian. You haven't seen the Mandalorian. That show is
Nope.
fantastic. You should watch that. It's really good. It's way better than any of the movies that Disney's put out of Star Wars, for
I'm
sure.
I'm disenchanted with Star Wars,
You should
but
watch it anyway,
maybe.
trust me. It's not very Star
Air
Wars. It
fryer.
takes place in the Star Wars universe, but it's basically like a bounty hunter western. You know what I'm saying? It just takes place
Okay.
in space, you know?
Maybe I'll give it a shot because frankly I've got nothing else to do.
It's good. It's very well written. It's very it'll put a smile on your face. It's just a very well done movie. But I mean, you got good people making it that actually love the source material, you know, and want to tell a new story within the source material instead of
Yeah.
digging into the same story and writing around that, you know. Like this, like the Mandalorian barely connects to anything Star Wars except for, you know, it being Star Wars in the Star Wars universe. But it doesn't
Yeah.
connect to like the main story of what Star Wars, you know, told. You know?
Yeah, there's not. It's not. Oh, we're gonna make Ray fucking
Yeah,
the
Ray's not in
Sith
it.
Lord's daughter,
The
and we're
Emperor's not
gonna.
being resurrected in it. You know, there's no Han Solo. There's none of that.
Yeah. See, and that's one of the things. I just maybe the nostalgia is gonna ruin it for me,
Mm,
even if I do try to watch The Mandalorian, just because I'm so bitter about all. Because
about the
I
Star
was
Wars.
I love look I loved even the prequels.
Yeah, I
'Cause I
love the
didn't.
prequels. I like the prequels a lot.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few
I mean
people. I guess me and you are one of the few people who actually like the prequels.
yeah, well, and I mean, everybody would bitch about Jar Jar Binks, about how Jar Jar
I don't
Binks
mind
is
Jar Jar
so
Binks.
terrible. But I was like, it's not bad. It's not that annoying. I've
Yeah, I
seen
didn't
way
find him
more annoying
annoying.
movies.
I found him annoying, but I found the point of him to be annoying. That was kind of the point, right? Like he was annoying. He
Yeah,
was even annoying the characters in the movie. That was kind of the point of the character.
yeah, and I get that they were all like, oh, it's stupid comedy, but I'm like, it was funny.
Yeah, it's for kids.
I don't
I
know.
mean, Star Wars is for kids. Like, I don't care what anybody says.
Shut up,
It's
you
for
fucking
adults too,
adult.
but there's going to be stuff in it for kids. It's a family film, right? Like, even the originals, they had. I see this. People bitch about this forever because Return of the Jedi, people bitched about when I was a kid because of the Ewoks. And they were like, oh, the Ewoks are so corny. I loved the fucking Ewoks when I was a kid. And I'm like,
They
guess
were
what? The Ewoks were in
cute.
there to appeal to kids because Star Wars
Yeah.
is for the whole family. So there's going to have kid stuff, some adult stuff, you know? It's going to mix it all in.
No, and see that's the thing. I don't mind that. Like I don't mind the kid aspect to it,
No, I
being
don't
able
mind
to
that.
have something for more than just my age group to enjoy or somebody else. It's fine that it's open up, and I really enjoyed them. And I feel like a part of it definitely is nostalgia because I've seen those movies more times than I can count. Like I can quote so much of those movies. It's like The Princess Bride out here. I can
Oh,
quote
yeah,
that shit
that's a good
backwards
one
and
too.
forwards.
Well, the original trilogy I watched growing up a million times. I had them on VHS and I just watched them over and over again. Those movies I could probably recite. The prequels, I watched in the theater a lot, but after watching them in the theater, I haven't watched them too many times, like at home.
Yeah, my dad just had a big box set of
Mm.
like everything. So that's all we do.
I
We
mean,
just watch
The
off.
Phantom Menace I saw in the theater 3 times. Like, that's how much I love that movie when the first time I saw it. And I remember it
It
was
was
either
good.
watch that or The Matrix the first time, and I watched that. And then the second time I went to the theater, I wanted to see it again, but everybody else wanted to see The Matrix, so I ended up watching that. And then I went back to watch Star Wars like 2 more times after that.
Yeah. Well, because again, it was a passion project. I don't care if it was corny. I don't care if there was one character that a lot of people thought was
It's
annoying.
got its problems,
You know.
but I don't see that its
Yeah.
problems bringing the movie down. I still enjoy it and have fun watching. The second one I kind of find boring. There's a whole middle section where it's all about Anakin and Padme's love and shit. It gets really corny and it takes too
The
long.
the meme
It just
section.
drags. Yeah, it just drags. I wish he would like maybe cut that down a little bit or added something in between, some action, because
Dude,
it just
if you
drags.
have you seen the extended cuts?
Oh, I don't even want to. Like, if
Oh,
there's more to those scenes, I don't want to
there's
see them.
more.
I seen
There's
enough of
more.
that. That was enough. That was more than enough. They should have cut that even more.
Yeah, it was a little bit over the
But
top,
that's
but
about it. I love the third movie. I love the first movie, and the second movie I would love if it wasn't for that. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for it dragging a lot in the middle.
yeah.
But
And I
even
mean,
like the beginning of that movie and the end of the movie is really exciting and done well too. It's just the middle drags. That's it.
yeah, but again, it was still a passion
Mm-hmm.
project. It was still somebody who had who was inspired by, frankly, a lot of other people, and a lot of
Yeah.
people say he ripped them off, but no,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't think it's ripping him off. I understand
no,
it.
he made it his own.
Tarantino does the same thing where all his movies are like homages to like past genres and stuff.
Yeah. So
And,
I
and
mean,
Tarantino's fantastic, so it's okay for people to do that. They can
love
show their
Tarantino.
influences. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch Mandalorian later.
You should. It's really good.
I
Trust me.
can't.
I love it. I think
I
it's
do.
done so well. Lots of Star Wars, old school Star Wars fans love it. And they think it's done well, way better than anything that Disney's done recently with the franchise.
Yeah, and frankly, my dad said the same thing. The Star Wars
Hmm.
nerd who had all the box sets, he said the same
Well,
thing. He
I
was like,
didn't
"It's great."
watch them, but there was like the animated series, and those did really well, like Clone Wars and Rebels, and I never seen those.
They were good.
Yeah, that's the
They were.
same guy that makes The Mandalorian. Is the guy who wrote
Oh,
the writer Tom Fellini or Filoni, I think his last name is. He's the guy who used to write for those series, and now he's writing this with Jon
okay.
Favreau, which is
Okay.
the guy
Yeah,
who
then
made
that's
the
gonna be
Iron Man
good.
movies. So you got the guy who made
Then
the
that
Iron
is
Man movies directing, and the writer of those two animated Star Wars shows that made the show.
okay. That makes way more sense. That makes so much more sense as to why those would be good. Because I mean, I didn't see the whole animated series. I
Hmm.
only saw parts of it because I have lots of younger siblings, and so they were
Yeah.
watching it all the time. But the parts that I saw, the episodes that I did see, they were really enjoyable. They were action packed. I mean, they were animated a little bit weird, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of CGI in the first place, so I never got into the
It
shows,
was,
but I've heard a lot of good stuff about it from people my age, from younger people, like from all types of people.
yeah. I mean, the characters were more compelling. Fuck, Anakin was way less of a douche canoe.
Yeah, I can
Jesus.
imagine they would make him a better character. What is the name of the show of
Yeah,
this show? Oh, the first one they did, the first series they did was called The Clone Wars, right? And that ran on for
I
like
think.
6 seasons, I think, and then they did another show called Rebels that kind of continued from there, and that lasted a few seasons. I think they're bringing them back now on Disney Plus though, because Mandalorian did so good. This guy's got some pull now to bring back the show because they never got to finish it, right? I think it got canceled
Well,
on the fifth
yeah.
season, and they never got to finish the sixth season. So I
And
think
they're
they're
trying
bringing
to
it
save
back.
their asses because they fucking tanked
Yeah,
a
so
ton of the
I think they're
movies.
giving him a chance to bring back the show starting on the sixth season and start airing it on Disney Plus. The book of Groomon. Yeah, it's very subtle. You guys aren't noticing my groom game going on. I want you to pay attention. It's very
Learn,
subtle. It's
young
very
Padawan.
subtle. I'm using the force on Anina. She just doesn't know it
Yeah.
yet. Oh no, that this show that we don't know yet, right? We don't have a name for what we're doing, right? We're just gonna do this like
I don't know.
whenever we have the time, maybe once a week or so, if we can pull that off. If we don't always make it, that's fine. But
Yeah,
that's cool.
it's
I
just,
think we could take. There's so many like old movies to introduce you to, probably that you haven't seen, that we could probably do this for a while.
yeah, and then when I'm in a little less of a cranky mood because I've been trapped up inside all day, we can watch something a little more
Oh,
dark,
yeah, a little
like
darker.
some
No, that's
horror.
cool. I like old school comedies introducing to that too, because with comedy, I always feel like they're trapped in their time period. So I always feel like I never really talk about it with like younger people, any movies, because I always feel like they're not gonna like it, not gonna get it. But you watched Revenge of the Nerds with us. You like that. You liked Vacation. So I was like, oh yeah, maybe
Loved
yeah.
that.
So you have that kind of ability to laugh at some old comedy and stuff from our time.
Well, I mean, I love old. I don't know. I love old stuff. Like I really enjoy super old
Hmm.
films. And super old stories. Like I'm a Shakespeare nerd, and you were all like, ah, it's out. It's all I played it. It's
Yeah.
out, done. It's overdone. But for me, I just frankly, as a kid, well, as like a 13-year-old teeny bopper, I was super into Twilight. And now I realize, oh my god, that was
Now you realize how
trash.
much garbage it is. Like, oh fuck,
It
there's so
was
much better
so
stuff out there
bad.
than this garbage.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was just because I was going through
Oh,
my sexual maturity phase, and I was all like, "Oh my god, vampires are so hot."
Devin's asking, did she like Booger? Did she enjoy Lamar's limp-wristed throwing style from Revenge of the Nerds? Remember they made
It was
they made the little
fantastic.
kid made the javelin so that it would work better with his limp-wristed style.
Yeah, it was great.
It's so crazy the shit you could get away with saying in the 80s and doing in movies that you wouldn't get away with now.
Yeah, I love that movie. I frankly, I feel like now, like as I get older and older, I'm all like, fuck new movies.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go watch all the old shit that I haven't seen yet.
And if you see what
'Cause
Trading Places, it's a comedy, but it's not like a die laughing all the time comedy, right? It's a very subtle comedy. It just
no,
puts a
it's
smile on your face. Sometimes they say things make you giggle. It's not trying too hard, and I think that's something that's missing from comedy movies these days. There's no like subtle comedies anymore. Everybody just wants to make a movie that, does some extreme thing to make you laugh really hard, and then that's it. It's like they're overpowering your emotions, really.
yeah, and it well, and it's like you said, it's formulaic.
Hmm.
It's let's joke punchline.
Yeah.
Try to
And you lose the story
get
in
as
that.
many in
As you can see
there.
with Trading Places, the story stays coherent the whole time. They never try to overdo the story with the comedy, and it's a relevant plot. It's it's a story that sticks to you and you can understand. They're not trying to do some crazy thing like four guys have a hangover in Thailand. Oh no, let's look back at all the
Yeah,
trouble they got into, with no real
like
plot, really, just them getting into trouble after trouble after trouble.
this is not the thought cast, Marino. How dare you say
Oh
that?
my god, no.
This is way
Oh,
better
there you
than the
go.
thought
Devin's got
cast.
it though. Devin said it's the thoughtful cast.
Oh, it's the thoughtful
Yeah.
cast.
Watching he said it's like watching a slow motion sexual assault.
It's the D cup cast. C cup, but you're close.
Close. Alpha's using Trading
But
Places to groom. Movies, man, that's how you groom.
yeah, dude, get
Introduce.
me into that, dude. No, get me in. Let's get into some of that old literature. Then you're gonna
Oh
really
shit.
groove. You're gonna make my panties drop.
It is a thing to like introduce people to stuff though. That is like a way to connect with people and stuff.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's a way to have something in common if you
Mm-hmm.
both watch the same thing, if you both enjoy the same piece of art. So, like, I don't know, I just want to go. I want to go and watch all of the old movies at this point because
Yeah.
like, seriously, as the more I watch, I'm just like, oh my god, everything's shit
Well, we're
nowadays.
gonna watch
Everything
Alien
sucks.
tonight, I think, but you just watched that. So but you made us want to watch it, so we were gonna watch that tonight.
I might watch it again with you. I don't
Yeah, if you
care.
want to. I actually might end the stream now and eat something before, because we'll probably
All
watch
right.
the movie soon. But
Yeah,
yeah, this was cool, and I think if you can once a week, we should do this. Watch a different movie and do it.
I totally can't. I could do it more times a week if you wanted to, but
Maybe we'll see. Well, we'll just do it whenever we feel like it. Really, like if you feel like doing it more
yeah,
and we're both free, we could do it.
I've got I've got all the time in the world right now. I don't have a job, so let's see if we can let's watch some more movies because frankly I'm bored.
And
I'm
for
really
anybody
bored.
interested that's watching or will watch this later, Anina has a Twitch channel she's twitching on. I'll put the name of the Twitch channel in the chat so people can see it. Sir Graham
Yes, Sir Graham
64,
64.
because you're a Nintendo 64 kid, but you're not, but you are.
But I'm not. No,
But
it's
you're not,
gamer
but you are, but you're not.
appropriation. It's total gamer appropriation. I'm stealing the 64 because I think it sounds cool, and I like some of those games.
Oh,
And
64 was
but
a great time in my
Sir
life, let me
Graham,
tell you.
that is
When Nintendo 64 dropped, ooh, had a lot of fun.
Sir Graham is not appropriation. Though. I mean,
Yeah,
I
you're
spelled it differently
appropriating
than the
from
actual
men's
Sierra game
culture.
spelled it.
You're appropriating from men's culture. Only men can be sirs.
I loved those games. I
I don't know what
loved
that's
the
from. What
Sierra
is?
games.
Oh, from the Sierra. That's right. You told me
King's
that before
Quest,
from
yeah.
King's Quest. Yeah, that. I always forget. When is her bat mitzvah? I think she's past that.
Just a little bit.
All right, yeah. Let's end this. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll do this more.
Yeah.
I'll notify everyone. Keep an eye out.
Bye.